Hello and welcome to Design Influence 2, Environmental Factors. Okay, so environmental factors have got obvious connections with some aspects of other design influences such as sustainable technology, but we're going to be looking at environmental factors in terms of the weather conditions, okay? So the first answer in your booklet will be, what is an environmental factor? Well, an environmental factor is considering the environment that the product is actually going to be in. Okay. Now, in terms of the environment it's going to be in, it may come into contact with certain conditions. Okay, those 5 conditions that might affect how a product looks and performs are the weather, wind, heat, humidity, and cold. So, for example, if we looked at a product that's used outside and it gets very windy, like this umbrella, a reaction to that would be this product here, which is the Sens umbrella, which is actually designed not to do this and collapse in the wind. It's designed to be very, very strong. Another example product, okay, to take advantage of the cold, so for example when the water freezes and could damage this tap, would be those tap covers that stop that from happening, that insulate the tap from the cold. So again, it's an example of a product which is reacting to the knowledge that this product is going to be outside and it could freeze, therefore, and you can see how it's influenced that product. Another product here, all right, it's a beach sort of umbrella. Why do you think this is silver? Well, that's because it's hot, and silver is a reflective color that will reflect some of the heat back. So again, that product has been designed with the environment that it's going to be used in, and that's why it's silver. So, what else can influence your designs? Okay, 2 things you need to be thinking about is the light around you, and sound can also be used. And let's take a look at each of those in turns. So in terms of light, light can actually cause certain plastics to deteriorate. In other words, they can fade and get weaker. You can see this here on these Stormtrooper figures. Okay, when they first came out, they were actually sort of quite white, but under just regular light, the actual plastic starts to degrade. Sometimes you can find it with outdoor garden furniture. If it's left outdoors in the sun, it becomes very, very brittle over time. You also need to be thinking about how light can actually be used as part of a product. So for sensors, such as photoelectric sensors, all right, light sensors to determine whether or not you need to turn a security light on or not. Street lighting, which has light sensors on the top to determine whether or not they come on at night. And also, as you'll see on quite a few houses nowadays, are these sort of photovoltaic cells there for gathering sort of solar energy. So again, we need to be aware of light as an environmental factor in terms of how it affects products, but how we can actually use light to generate power and to generate things that we want our products to do. In terms of sound, again, you need to think about and consider the level of sound the product will make. So very often phones have a limit on how loud you can turn the microphone up to. That's the example there. But also that means that, say if you're designing an alarm clock, you need to be aware of how loud your alarm actually sounds so that it's loud enough to wake people up. For the switch on a kettle, very often the only indication you have that the kettle is finished is when that switch clicks off. So you would have to design that switch so you can actually hear that click from a reasonable distance away. Same with parking sensors on cars. They need to generate a noise that can be heard, and again, it's just how you have to be aware of all these systems to be able to design products. Now, whilst we're talking about sound, did you know that sound can be used to join materials? And it's a process called ultrasonic welding. Okay, I'll just show you a little clip of it here. Okay, and what it does, it just uses a very, very high frequency of sound to actually sort of agitate the material and actually fuse it together. All right, so it actually sticks plastic together. It's a bit like using a very, very sort of concentrated little iron to sort of join join the materials together, but there's no heat involved. It is sound which actually does this. It does effectively just weld the plastic together. So, just to recap really then, so the whole point of this design influence is all about considering the environment around us, okay? Consider what's around us, and also consider the environment or the place that a product will be used in. Because at the end of the day, all we want is we want products that operate correctly, we want them to function, we want them to have as long a service life as possible. We don't want them to break down just because we didn't anticipate a certain environmental condition. We also want to try and reduce their environmental impact in terms of, whether they produce heat or light or sound. And we also want to try and sort of minimize the disposal and replacement. That just means we don't want to just chuck our products away as soon as they go slightly wrong. Okay, so you've got a quick exam question to do, which is based on an actual question. So think about this wind turbine. Okay, so it's like a household one that you can buy and you can fit to your house, and you need to try and describe, well, how would those weather conditions or environmental factors, how would they be considered? For example, in terms of sound, you need to make sure that it's quiet, otherwise it will be a nuisance to neighbours. In terms of the weather, all right, then obviously it needs to be, you don't want it to be a lightning rod conductor, so you suddenly electrocute everyone in the house. So it's just think of each factor. So in terms of the wind, what have you got to try and say it needs to do because of the wind? Has it got to withstand wind so that it doesn't fall off? In terms of humidity, okay, moisture getting into it. Okay, so make sure you've got a two-part answer. What does it need to do because of that weather condition, and why does it need to do it? Thanks for listening, and good luck with the question.